Okay, it's unmuted now. And now we're here live. How's it going?
It's going good.
Babe, how you feeling? Are you excited for this? Don't look at me.
Yeah.
Just look at the screen.
Sorry.
All right, if you look at me the whole time, people are going to be like, why are they...
I don't do this. You're a professional at this. I don't do this.
You guys heard it here first. I'm the professional.
No.
Well, hey, I'm really excited for this. I keep looking at you. I'm really excited for this. Talking about something that I care deeply about, that you care deeply about, special needs.
Yeah.
Before we get started, let's just say a quick thing about CIY. So CIY is doing a really cool webcast for, it's a mental health, talk about mental health. This is Suicide Awareness Month, which you know all about. And they're doing a great webinar. It's free. There's links around ControlCast social media, but it's September 5th, 2 p.m. CDT, which you know what that stands for?
No.
Central Time. Central Domestic Time. I think this is what the D stands for, domestic. I have absolutely no idea, really. But we're excited for that. So, here we go. Justin, Britt, sitting on opposite sides. Oh. That's weird. So, let's get started here. Talk a little bit quickly about what you do and where you do it, because you're an expert in this. I consider you an expert, and I'm married too, so it's a really exciting thing.
You say that all the time, that I'm an expert in it, but, you know, I don't feel like I am. But I am a school psychologist, so I work at a school district, and I've worked at a few school districts doing this. I work with anywhere from, you know, little kids, TK, like kinder, to through high school, and I essentially work as part of the staff team to help families and students with special needs. So it's mostly academic, but we do lots of counseling and all students who are at risk, struggling, special needs, a variety of disabilities, a variety of needs, a variety of supports and services that we help students get access to. So that's what I do at work.
That's great. So help, you know, kind of let's get us started here. What are some of the things that we're going to talk about today? We're going to talk about special needs in the church. We're going to talk about special needs maybe that's different from kids ministry to junior high school ministry. Touch on parents, volunteers. What's something that I didn't mention that you're like, we should definitely mention this if we're going to talk about special needs?
Well, I think that, I mean, we've talked about it before. We have a son with autism. He's 4.
True.
And so I think a lot of our experience, while I have all of the professional experience, a lot of our experience, especially in the church, comes from being a parent.
Yeah.
And what a parent needs and what a family needs and what a kid needs. And again, we have one child with special needs. So there are a variety of disabilities and varying, you know, severities within each of those disabilities.
Which is an important thing. We're not covering everything.
No. That's impossible.
Impossible. And
Yeah.
every situation's different.
Yes.
So just because we know 1 or 2 kids with a type of special need doesn't mean we know every type of kid with special need or everything that they need.
Yeah, and I think if nothing else you take away from this is that every kid is different, and so you have to find out the needs from the parent, from the kid, from spending time and getting to know the family before you can, you know, there are things you can offer to start out, but if you aren't getting to know people, you're not going to be successful.
All right, so this is the question that most youth pastors are probably thinking about, which is the thing that I dealt with, I talk to you about often, which is you have a kid in the youth ministry. You kind of get a sense that there's something going on. You're not a doctor. Most youth pastors aren't. But you also don't need to be a doctor to know that there's just something going on with this kid. You don't. He's kind of awkward in groups. He says kind of weird things, not like junior high weird, but just odd things that don't really fit the setting that you're in. How do you, unless the parent has come to you and said, hey, just so you know, my kid is XYZ, and maybe here's their IEP.
Which we are those parents. Like, we're the parents that are like, this is what our kid needs, this is what they have, but not everyone is.
Not everyone is. For the ones who are not, how can someone on the church side, so let's say we weren't. Yeah. What's the right way for a church person to say, hey, we had some questions about Beckett. It kind of seems like how would you coach someone into going about that in a way that wouldn't be offensive, wildly offensive?
So I think you want to ask in a way that shows that you care about their kid and you want them to be able to fully participate and thrive in your ministry. So telling them, hey, I've noticed he's having a hard time with X, Y, and Z. So for us, it'd be something like, I notice he's having a hard time sitting on his own in the big group time. Or I notice he's having a hard time with dumping toys while he's playing in the room with other kids. So those are the kinds of things. So is there anything I can do to help with that?
So it's specifics. It's not just, hey, your kid kind of seems seems weird. I don't know what's going on with him. It's I have been observing X.
Yeah.
What can I do to help with that? Help him or her be more successful.
Don't diagnose the kid. Don't say there's something wrong with them. Don't tell them they look weird or odd. Don't tell them other kids don't like them, because those are really hurtful things to parents. You want to address what challenges they're having and immediately go to, how can I help with that?
Now, they can be doing odd things.
Totally.
And other kids might not like them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the socialization, am I using the right word?
Yeah.
Is a big part of kids growing up through adolescence.
Yes.
If other kids don't want to play with them because of X, Y, Z, then yes, that's a factual statement. That other kids don't like playing with your kid. That's not what a parent needs to hear.
No, don't say that, because you're going to close them off completely. And the reality is kids are weird.
It's true.
I think one of the things I learned really early on is, because I was always trying to figure out, so I think sometimes my knowledge paralyzes me a little bit, because it's my professional side trying to look at my own kid, and those are two very different worlds.
Yeah.
So I think, one of our specialists that worked with us that I was really close to said, kids are weird. I was always trying to figure out, is it autism? Is it his personality? Is it just normal weird kid stuff?
Yeah.
Kids are weird. And that doesn't change up through elementary and middle and even into high school. They're kind of weird. And sometimes their families are kind of weird. And sometimes you meet the kid and then you meet the parents and then you understand. So it doesn't have to be a disability, but I would always address, this is the challenge. How can I help?
So one of the things that I always see as important is putting volunteers, having great volunteers with students with special needs.
Yes.
It's not as easy as just the typical, and you've seen me make these announcements. Hey, everyone in the church, we're looking for great people to help, blah, 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 all that spiel. But what we're looking for in a special needs leader is different than the typical leader. Can you talk about some of those aspects? Let's assume we want them to have all the things the regular leader has, but then they need some extra special things that make them a special needs leader. What would be some of those things?
Well, I think it kind of depends on the need of the kid. So for and I'm going to speak from personal experience. For Beckett, it's consistency, because the more consistency we have with him, if he knows he's going to see the same people and they know the boundaries, because he will push them, and if they know how to keep him in line with those boundaries, which is not a hard thing to do, but if you don't know him, you will have no idea what to do. So for us, consistency is super key. I think a heart for it, like you can't be unwilling to learn. You do not have to know anything. We had a volunteer at Sandals when we were there, and they killed it with special needs, by the way.
There's a lot to say about Sandals. One of the things that can be said is they have incredible special needs.
Yeah, and I don't know
for their children. I can't speak to the youth.
We weren't there long enough to really get a good feeling, and so I don't know if it was.
Got to bring that up again, huh?
Sorry, that wasn't my intention. We're talking about our kid.
Well, let's stay focused on special needs.
So one of the I don't know if it was just the volunteer. I don't know if it was just his name was David. He ran all the early childhood stuff at the campus we went to. He was awesome. So I don't know if he'll ever see this or anyone will ever see this, but you were awesome, and we never got to say thank you. So, but he, from the first day, literally first or second week we were there, he had kept one volunteer on him, on Becca, and he had her sister cover one or two times, and it was so helpful, because he was able to participate in ways that he wouldn't have been able to without that consistency.
So consistency for us is a big thing. For a lot of families, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
So this is one of those that, while we can't speak to every special need, if you have 10 families with special needs, of varying special needs, consistency, you could argue, maybe the one of the things that can thread them all together.
Absolutely.
As far as what they would want. That doesn't come by accident. Consistency comes with a strategy. What is a strategy to build that kind of consistency?
You're asking me what the youth ministry strategy is?
Well, do you want, maybe you should ask me what you think it is.
What is the strategy, Justin?
Well, here's my feeling on it. That when you're dealing with special needs specifically, you can't be vague about the expectation. I think when we're recruiting leaders in general, sometimes we're vague about the expectation.
Yeah, because you don't want them to run away.
Yeah. You don't want to well, you don't. Yeah, and you don't want to overwhelm on the front end of like, well, we need you to be at this Wednesday thing, but then sometimes there's a Sunday thing, and then don't forget about camp, and then the retreat, and don't forget to bring your own sleeping bag for camp. Like it's just all these things. So we don't want to overwhelm them. So, and we want to keep it loose, right? Hey, it's loosey-goosey, it's the church. But when it comes to special needs, the loosey-goosiness is one of the first things that has to go out the window. Painting the really clear expectation that, now tell me if this is extreme, that you can actually do more harm than good when you don't have a consistent leader. Or maybe not just consistent leader, maybe it's broader of consistent values. But the consistency in the leader, if you don't have that at all, if that's not a value at all, it can actually do more harm than good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the kid, right? So it depends on the need. It depends on the family. So for me, there's different, like so going to drop Beckett off at church has been stressful. Because of the lack of consistency. Now, is he going to do anything that's going to hurt him or anyone else? Absolutely not. Like literally I have a total spiel. So because if we go to a different service, so I don't know how, okay. So
give the spiel.
So I essentially drop him off, and if I don't know the volunteers and there's no one there that knows him, I say, okay, this is Beckett. He has autism. He'll do just fine. He's not going to hit, because that's what they're always worried about, because of people really just don't know.
Yeah.
And I can't fault them for that. He's not going to hit or get super upset or anything like that, because he doesn't. He's great. Yeah. So the worst he's going to do is dump a toy, like dump a box of toys. But he's going to have a hard time sitting in the large group by himself. So that's kind of the spiel. And usually they look at me and they're like, okay. And so having Justin have worked at the church, I just grab a volunteer and say, hey, can you let that class know about Beckett?
I thought you grabbed the volunteer and showed him a picture of me and be like, you know who my husband is? That's not what you do?
Oh, come on.
All right.
So that's kind of my spiel, but that's uneasy, right? I never like dropping him off like that, because I know he's not going to be successful. I know the volunteers aren't going to be successful with having him participate because they don't know him. It's not. And so there's this uneasiness about dropping him off. But when we have a volunteer, I'm like, peace out, dude. Like I drop him off just like I do Cannon. There's no problem at all. And dropping your kids off is not an easy thing anyways. And when they have extra needs and they're not going to be successful without support, that's even harder.
Yeah. The trust thing, it really speaks to the trust that you develop with parents of special needs kids.
Yeah.
That they can drop their kids off and just jet. Here's my question. Do you think most parents that have special needs kids have a spiel like that either they share, which is great, and freak out a volunteer or a staff member, or that they don't share out of fear of doing that?
I think unfortunately a lot of families don't. I have worked in the field for a long time. I talk about special needs all the time. I have a very, aggressive, I guess is fine, a word, personality.
I like aggressive.
And so I don't have a problem being upfront, straightforward. This is what my kid needs. This is what you're going to struggle with right now. This is what he's going to do well with. Like, I don't have a problem, because I do this and I talk about special needs every day. And it took a little bit to get comfortable doing that with my own child.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to sacrifice his ability to participate. So I think that's the way that I go about like advocating for him in that situation. But unfortunately, I think a lot of families just don't go. I think they keep their kid with them, or they don't go, or
now this bothers me, obviously.
Yeah,
because I think the church should be the safest place for a family to come, leave their kid, and then go enjoy service, go enjoy their friends, like people they know. And we want to create that environment.
Yeah.
So I want to get into some of the tactical pieces of the environment piece. Some churches will have fully integrated rooms. So you put the kid goes to where kind of their age is. Some churches will have the separate rooms where they either just put all the special needs kids regardless of level of special need, or they just kind of have it there and usable if needed. Where do you fall on this from the school psychologist point of view? What is like an effective strategy for this? Let's assume every church prioritized special needs and was willing to change around any room, any space to accommodate what was best for the family. What would you want to see?
I mean, I think ideally you need all of it. You need all of it. You need to have a separate room because there are kids that just legitimately need a separate room that an untrained volunteer or even a minimally trained volunteer is not going to be able to handle the kid in the regular classroom. And so it is nice to have. And I know that is where, at least I'm going to assume from the limited knowledge I have about churches and what they have, that's what most churches have. That's easy. That's one room with a few volunteers, probably more trained or more knowledgeable, or at least more able to get to know the families in that one room.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for everyone. I would never allow Beckett to be in that kind of a room because that's not what he needs, right? So, and I've had people suggest that maybe he should just go here, and I'm like, no, not going to happen, because I know that that's not what he needs. So there's another tip: is listen to your parents. You may see these kids an hour a week. They're with them all the time, and they're working on a variety of things.
You know, that's just such an interesting point, because I've been in those boardroom meetings where we're talking through special needs and space and logistics and then cost and volunteers, and we try and decide and figure out, well, what is the best we can do with the resources we have, when the reality is this is a great conversation if we were talking all about typical kids, because everyone kind of goes with the flow.
Yeah.
When we're dealing with special needs kids, the parent is way more engaged and knows what their kid needs. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Is engaged and knows what their kid needs. And we can't just paint it all with the same brush of say, okay, well, here's this room and we're just going to send them all there. Or
you can, and a lot of people will accept that. And that's a really sad thing. But there's a lot who won't,
and then it will become an issue.
Well, and you don't want to be the church that gets people to accept that, right? Like, that's not who you should want to be.
Wait, where's my Twitter? I gotta get that.
Yeah, I'm way more passionate about this topic than the other ones we talked about.
I love that. Hit it again. We shouldn't be the church
that allows the parents to just say, oh, okay, I guess that's what they have for my kid. That's not okay. I get that there's limited resources, but I've also looked at a staff member and said, those things aren't my problem. Those are your problem.
You have, and I absolutely love that.
And, you know, and I felt for her because I know, you know, specifically what that looks like in those environments. And I mean, I know what that looks like. But I also, as a special needs parent, don't care. That's not your problem. Or at least be real about it and say, yeah, we just haven't done a good job at getting volunteers, or we're coming up against obstacles in recruiting volunteers, or whatever the case may be. But don't talk to me about staff transition. Don't talk to me about volunteers. Don't talk to me about summertime. I don't want to hear any of those things as a special needs parent. And I'm talking because I actually say those things, but I think a lot of parents think those things and don't say them.
See, and that, again, that's why this is such an important conversation to have in front of youth pastors, because a family will just disappear, or a kid will disappear. It's like, man, I haven't seen Eli in a while. I haven't seen Vivian in a while. Where do they go? Well, the reality is that parent just didn't want to speak up to you. Yeah. They just found some other place to go, or they decided to stay at home and watch online, which that's the most heartbreaking of all. Really, really, really sad.
Well, and unfortunately, I don't think a lot of churches have really well-developed special needs, and I could be totally wrong. And we just, I have limited interaction with a handful of churches, but none of them have had really, really great special needs, except Sandals, to be honest.
Yeah, Sandals is really great. A lot of things to say about Sandals. Man, oh man, their special needs are ridiculous.
Yeah, it was great, and it was hard to take Beckett out of there, and it was hard to then not have someone for him. And they're just gonna leave. And if they're not, you know, super strong in their faith, they just may not go again. Yeah. And I know that sounds like a lot of weight, but if you can't, just like with kids ministry, if they don't feel comfortable, if people don't feel comfortable dropping their kids off in the youth ministry, they're not going to go. It's heightened for special needs. If they don't feel like they can drop their kids off and have somewhere safe space, whatever that looks like, they're not going to go.
Yeah. We're going to touch on a couple more things quickly, but we're also going to answer a couple questions if we get them. We might not. I mean, there's, you know, this is late at night. You know, this is almost 9:00 on the on the West Coast, East Coast. They're putting on their rain jackets, getting ready for the hurricane, which is very serious, by the way. So
that's scary.
It'd be very, very scary. So we're going to take some questions. If anyone posts them in the comments, we're going to take a look in a second. Here's the last couple things I want to touch on real quick. Do you have a strong opinion about integrated versus non-integrated? So a kid maybe developmentally. So let's take Beckett. Let's just use him as the example. If he was 10 years old, but with the cognitive ability of a 5-year-old, would you want to see Beckett with the 10-year-olds or with the 5-year-olds?
Kids always need to be with their age group, and then it's our job as the church to support them in that age group. And I think I say that so matter-of-factly because in the schools, that's legal, right? That's what we have to do. In churches, obviously, it's not, but it is what's best for kids.
Well, do you think the church doesn't do it? So let's say the church, for argument's sake, okay? And I'm not pro this, so don't mishear me.
So don't jump all over
So
you.
just don't freak out. But let's say the government swooped in and took control of the churches and special needs. The way they've taken control of the school, and the churches were really forced to change things. Do you think that would be better?
No.
Or worse?
No, I mean, no.
No? Why?
No, because I don't think the government should
I don't think they should
okay.
either. But this is what I hear you saying, that the school district is doing it the way it should be doing it because it's governed by something looking out for what's best for the kid.
And I guess I don't know if
it's kind of free-for-all. It's like, whatever we can afford, and it's whatever.
Well, I don't know that they're doing what's best for the kid solely because it's governed. Like, is it law? Yes. But is it law backed by research? Yes. And so I think that the churches just need to come from that standpoint of what's best for students and what's best for the family. So like I professionally and our own personal would never want Beckett in like a kindergarten room if he was in 4th grade or 5th grade.
Yeah.
But maybe that's where the family's comfortable. And the reality is the church isn't there to give therapy to the kid or work on all these crazy goals. Like Beckett has a gajillion goals, literally, at home,
probably
at
more
school.
goals than I have, to be
He
honest
has
with you.
so many things that we work on, and we're lucky enough that we've had an incredible team around him at home, at school, our families. Everyone does everything.
So what I hear you saying is integration preferable. But it's also the decision of the parent. If the parent says, this is what I want, then let's make that happen.
Yeah.
All right, here's my other question then. What about for our special needs kids who are no longer kids? They have passed the age of 18. Now in the school system, there's great resources there for the 21-year-old.
Yeah.
All the way up to what age in the school system?
22.
Okay, up to 22. So say we have a 21-year-old or a 19-year-old. Where should they find themselves in the church system?
I mean, if they can participate in college ministry and have someone there to support them, that is great. If they can participate in the weekend service and have someone there to support them, that's great. Now, you get much into like adulthood and past college. I don't know. I think, you're an adult now, but likely you have caretakers. But you're probably participating in some sort of community job, community activities, things like that. Again, I think it's really the opinion of the family, because you're not going to have a kid with special needs just out there on his own if he needs extra support or she needs extra support.
All right, last couple things before we wrap up. Church has no idea what they're doing, okay? Other than hiring you to fly to their church and sit in their office, which by the way, please hire her.
Oh,
She's
gosh,
great.
I did not know this is what this is going to be.
Other than doing that, okay, what should the youth pastor, say they're starting to discuss special needs ministry at the church, they're starting to rework the entire thing, what should the youth pastor walk in there with? Give them a couple thoughts that they can walk in there with to get the meeting going in the right direction, to rebuild their special needs ministry.
I think it's a mindset shift for sure, which is the hardest kind of shift, but it's got to be about serving each individual family. And you need to be willing to get to know those families.
So when they say, well, I don't know if we have the space for that, or I don't know if we have the money for that, which some of those things are legitimate things, okay?
Yeah.
But they say, well, I don't know if we have the money for that, the space for that, or, this isn't what we usually do. Usually we just kind of shove them all into a room, like, I don't know what you're talking about, youth pastor guy. You have to help change the mindset in the room toward doing what's best for every single family individually.
Yes. And you look up if they're saying, because I mean, I don't think any church is going to say, well, we include them all. Why would we put them in a room? Like, I don't think that's the direction. I think it's probably they have a room, they shuffle them all in, which is terrible.
Yeah.
But just bringing up that every kid is different, and hey, maybe this kid can participate in their third grade group if they just have a little extra support. And you're already the pastor, right? Getting paid on salary. So you make the connection with the family. You see what the needs are. And then you find a volunteer. And there's no money. There's no extra space for that. It's just time. But you're caring for the families that need it.
Can you do high quality special needs ministry without a lot of money?
Totally. You need volunteers.
What about $0?
Yeah, you need volunteers.
All right, so this is the last thing we're talking about. We're going to talk about volunteers because I want to train great volunteers, especially for special needs. And you're totally right. You walk in and give your spiel, and it's like deer in the headlights, like they don't know what to do.
No.
And then sometimes volunteers say dumb stuff, not because they're dumb people, but because they just don't know how to speak about these things. They don't know. Everyone just doesn't know. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. And we're going to make it real simple. Just a couple tips. What are 3 things that if you had a room of volunteers and special needs volunteers were in this room, what were the 3 things you'd want to train them in that you'd really want them to hear, things that they should do, 3 do's? And then we're going to talk about 3 don'ts. So 3 do's.
I think getting to know your family. So however you do that, whether that's a small group of volunteers that supports the special needs families in your ministry as a whole, whether that's one specific volunteer with one specific student, getting to know your family, I'd say this is the most important one. And never just on your own. I would do it with the support of the youth pastor. Like not just straight volunteer to parent, but the volunteer pastor parent.
Okay. So that's one do. Give us another do.
Be consistent.
Okay.
Be consistent. Show up. Communicate when you're not going to show up. It's frustrating for a family when you're not there.
So what if you're a volunteer and you have a great heart and you're like, man, I can be there. Just sometimes I just can't be there sometimes. And it's last minute. You just never know. Should you as the youth pastor say, or kids pastor say, you know what? Let's find another spot for you to volunteer because we need consistency and so that just won't work in this role.
I mean, I think it kind of depends because if you have a real need for volunteers and special need, then it's like, okay, that could work with some families. But maybe that person's like a floater. I know that some churches have like a floater where when a volunteer's out, that person kind of jumps in. And then you're not directly impacting one kid. If it really is completely random that you're not going to be there. If you can be consistently there the first 2 Sundays of every month, but not the second, third, and fourth, great. That's consistent. They can find someone consistent for the third and fourth, and the parent knows what's going to happen when they show up that day. It doesn't have to be the same person all the time, depending on the kid, but the key is the parent knowing what's going to happen when they get to church that day.
I love that. All right, one more do. So special needs volunteers, all volunteers. One more thing that they should definitely do. Definitely do. Here's my do. Okay. Don't be so quick to call the parent if things get a little out of hand. Like be able to kind of roll with this a little bit. Yeah. Like if the first time Beckett threw a thing of toys and it's like the special need kids, he's losing it. Like we got to call the parents. Like that's the wrong. The wrong route to go.
Yes.
Now, obviously, there's moments where
you have to call.
If he picks up scissors and starts running after someone, maybe we.
Well, and maybe ask the parent that, right? Like that's communication and that's consistency.
So maybe the third do is communication.
Yeah. So ask the parents, like, when do you want me to call?
Oh my gosh.
Like, what's your line? Because my line may be very different than someone else's line of when I want you to call. Because I know that, okay, he may dump some toys, even if he's irritated, he's not going to freak out, right? And I know that, but you don't know that.
Got a comment here from TJ, who hosts the Fringe Youth Worker podcast, says that Controlled Chaos needs a new host and needs to be you with tidbits like that.
No.
No, seriously, that tidbit, I think that one tidbit alone, we should have led with that because it makes this whole live cast worth it. To be able to talk to a parent and ask them that simple question, hey, what's your line? When do you want to be notified? Yeah. That's just a good thing. All right, 3 don'ts. 3 don'ts, and then we're going to take a couple questions if we have them.
Don't assume that because you have an autistic cousin or a great aunt with Down syndrome.
Or you saw Rain Man.
You saw a movie that you know that kid.
You watched the Good Doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, that you know that kid.
Like, is he really good at math? Like, it's not that kind of autism.
Because, although Beckett's very good at puzzles.
He's really good at puzzles. Shockingly good, actually.
But don't assume. Don't assume that you know because you saw. I mean, you can think those things, but every kid is so different. You're not a professional. They're not paying you to be. They're just paying you to be there with their kid, or they're just hoping you can be there with their kid.
But that's not a bad thing. That's a good.
No,
you're not a professional.
No,
they're not expecting you to fix it.
No.
They just want to go to church, relax. They want to know their kid is safe, having a good time. That's the most freeing thing for a volunteer that you could possibly do.
And every parent wants a different thing. So I'm not okay with Beckett just going into the room and running around and then going back into the classroom. So yes, that everyone is safe and he's happy doing that, but that's steps backwards for me. So like every parent wants different things, so it comes back to that communication. But don't assume that you know the kid or the disability because you saw one thing one time.
Well, give us another don't.
Don't be inconsistent. I know that's but that's huge. Like I can't even. That's super super huge. Don't talk.
I think don't talk. What are you gonna say? Don't talk.
Like don't talk about
kids' special needs.
Yeah, with other people. Don't be like, oh my god, did you see that kid? They're so weird.
I can't believe he's picking his butt and smelling it. It's like, what's
kids
that?
Are weird.
Yeah, kids
with special needs are weird. Adults are weird. Like people are weird.
Seriously. It's very true.
So just be respectful of because you don't know, you don't live with that family, you don't live with that kid. If you have experience with special needs, great. And you want to jump right in, great. There's a lot of people that experience with special needs that want to, that don't want to. Like I don't want to serve in special needs because I live it at home, at work. But no one's expecting you to know all these crazy things. But don't be disrespectful.
Yeah, that's good. Let's see, questions. I don't think anyone typed any questions.
That's fine. It's a lot. This is a lot.
That I can see. This is a lot. I have one last question for you. Okay. This is an honest question, okay?
Oh,
if there's a youth worker out there who does not know what to do, could they reach out? Could they send an email to you to ask questions, or to me that I could ask questions and email them back?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with helping and supporting in ways that I can. I do have knowledge. I do like to help. And if you need help, or if you have a question, yeah, definitely.
Here's my last question. If they can't get you to come to their church, which I was joking about half. I was half joking about.
Yeah, I work full time.
I know, and you have weekends off. It's whatever. So, but say they want to have someone come and assess their special needs. Let's just say hey, I don't know if our special needs is up to par. Who could they reach out to in their community, in their church? Because it doesn't need to be a Christian person. We're not asking to assess curriculum.
No.
We're asking to assess the structure of the special needs structure. Who could they reach out to, and maybe in their own community, and sweet talk them to come in and just give and assess? Because you work in the school system.
Yeah,
Most school districts have a psychologist. Could they reach out to their local school psychologist and say, hey, I'm calling from First Baptist of whatever. I know this is a weird request.
Yeah.
Would you come to can I pay you to come to my church this weekend and give an assessment of how we're doing special needs, whatever. If someone called you, now obviously you're a churchgoer, but would you understand that request if you didn't do church or understand church?
I wouldn't just cold call them and say that.
Really? I love cold calling people.
I would talk to people in your church. You've got to have a person who's an educator. And then if they're not a special educator, then they can connect you with someone in special education. And that way you have some referral too, because there's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing. And may not.
It's very true. Very sad.
May not have good philosophies or have good advice for you. So I would start with talk to the people in your church who maybe are, and I think the schools are a great place to start because they do it every day, and they deal with the same kids that you do, the same kids in your community. And sometimes there's some private agencies and things like that, but I would start with the people you have in your church who are connected to the school district. That's where I would start.
I love that. There's help out there. And to me, that's the biggest thing to hear. There's help out there. Don't feel like you have to do it alone. Don't think you have to figure it out by yourself, because you don't, because that's crazy. And
no one reasonable expects you to know. I mean, the whole thing is a lot, and I do this for a job, and we have a kid with special needs, and Justin does things for his job, and so no one reasonable will expect you to know what's best for these families.
Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Share this with your friends. Talk to people about it. I want to hit one more time, because we love CIY, the really great webcast that they're doing. talking about care for the next generation and mental health. This is Suicide Prevention Month. They gave a whole month to this, month of September, and they're doing this webcast. It's coming up the 5th of September, so only a couple days away. There's links around the Controlled Cast social media, so feel free to go sign up. Love CIY. Love that they're doing this, and it's going to be great. So any last words from you, babe, before we go?
No, that's it.
All right, do you want to do the sign off? Do you know how to do it? Me and Kurt do it every week. I know you listen to the podcast, so you know.
I don't know.
Okay, so this is what we do. We talk about whatever, and then he says, I say, I'm Justin, and he says, I'm Kurt, and then I say, this is the Control Cast podcast. So we'll do the same kind of thing. You'll say, I'm Britt, and I'll say, I'm Justin, and then you'll say, and this is the Control Cast Facebook Livecast. See you later.
Okay.
So, all right, ready? All right,
okay.
You go.
I'm Britt.
I'm Justin.
And this is the Controlled Cast Livecast.
You nailed it, babe.